Imagine waking up one morning and the world you've always called home suddenly feels like a costume that's two sizes too small. The coffee still smells the same. People still greet you with the same smiles. But inside your chest, there's an unexplained hollow, like a part of you quietly packed its bags and left without saying when or if it's coming back. You can still go to work, still laugh at the right moments, still answer, I'm fine, when someone asks. But every night, when the lights go out, a small voice keeps getting louder. What is all this for? Is this really the life I want? Some people immediately label it depression. Others, with a tremor of hope, call it the dark night of the soul, the deepest stage of a spiritual awakening. And the most painful, life-defining question you're facing right now is, how do you know which one you're actually going through? Because from the outside, they can feel exactly the same. Energy vanishes without a trace. The colors of the world fade to gray. The future looks like a concrete wall with no cracks. But deep inside, on the layer only you can touch, there's a subtle difference that will decide whether you stay stuck in stagnation or are reborn with a face that's more honest, more whole, more alive than any version of you you've ever known. If this reflection is shaking something you've kept quietly locked away, maybe a tiredness you've never told anyone about, maybe a growing hunger for meaning, then this is the moment we walk deeper together. Turn on the notification bell and join the Metasitta channel, not just to find a space that understands how heavy this night feels, but to help light a small lamp for thousands of other hearts wrestling in the same darkness, wondering if they're broken or being reborn. Carl Jung never saw depression as just a chemical imbalance or a personal failure. To him, depression was a love letter written in the blackest ink from the depths of the soul, a letter too heavy to be spoken in ordinary words, so it could only be delivered through emptiness. When depression arrives, life energy, what Jung called libido, doesn't actually disappear. It simply stops flowing outward. It collapses inward, withdrawing from a world we've been forcing to give us reasons to get up, reasons to smile, reasons to keep going. The things that once made your heart race now feel like blank paper. Light conversation feels like exhausting acting. The future feels like a room with no windows and no doors. This isn't ordinary tiredness. This is a gentle yet firm spiritual emptiness saying, I can no longer pretend this life is enough for you. I can no longer wear the mask you force me into every day. There's a part of you that you buried alive long ago, maybe a dream you abandoned to be realistic, a wound you sealed shut to seem strong, a voice you silenced to be accepted, a gift you killed to stay safe, and now that part refuses to stay buried. It's speaking the only language you still hear, echoing emptiness. Depression is like a lady in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, treat her like a guest, and listen to what she has to say. Carl Jung. Spiritual awakening never begins with explosions of light, angelic choirs, or sudden floods of peace. It far more often begins with quiet, slow, deeply human collapse, a collapse that feels exactly like depression. You're standing in a dark corridor between two doors. The old door has already closed behind you. You can't go back to being the person you were because that person no longer fits the soul growing inside you. But the new door hasn't fully opened yet. You don't know who will walk out of this darkness because they're still being formed. And in that corridor, depression and awakening look identical. pure clinical depression that is only stagnation whispers. Everything is meaningless. I am empty. There is no hope. There is no way out. The dark night of the soul, the deepest stage of awakening, whispers softly in the middle of the same pain. What used to give you meaning is no longer enough. Something truer is fighting to be born, and I have to tear down the old house first, so there's room for you to build the new one. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People would rather do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Carl Jung. Inside each of us, Jung believed, there is the self, a capital S self that is bigger than the ego, deeper than social roles, more eternal than titles, status, or outside approval. This self is like the earth's core, always there, always whole, but buried under layer after layer of persona, parental expectations, childhood wounds, and fear of rejection. When we live too far from this self, chasing success we don't want, wearing masks we didn't choose, living for other people's shoulds, the soul starts to protest. And that protest often arrives as deep depression that feels like total destruction. But Jung taught that this destruction is not failure. It is the loudest, most honest, most loving call home the soul has ever sent us. And if we dare to answer, if we dare to sit among the ruins and listen, we begin individuation, the long, winding, intensely personal, never fully finished journey toward wholeness. This process isn't pretty like spiritual Instagram quotes. It's more like demolishing an old, rotten house, dusty, noisy, full of emotional debris we've stored in the attic and basement. You feel lost because your old identity is melting like wax. You feel empty because space is being cleared for something that actually fits your true soul size. You feel disconnected because many old relationships were built on a version of you that's no longer real. Yet in the middle of it all, something sacred is happening. The unconscious starts speaking louder and clearer through dreams that grow vivid and symbolic, emotions that explode for no apparent reason, coincidences that feel like personal messages from the universe, and deep questions that refuse to leave, knocking on your heart in the middle of the night. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. The most radical thing about Jung is his conviction that darkness is not the enemy. It's the most honest, loyal, and patient teacher we'll ever have. If we dare to listen, depression can become the doorway to the deepest, most authentic, most lasting awakening. But how? First, listen to the language of the unconscious with reverence. It doesn't speak in logical sentences. It speaks in symbols, dreams, and emotions that seem irrational. When depression comes, write down your dreams in as much detail as possible. Notice recurring images or figures, and gently ask yourself, which part of me have I buried alive for too long? What is this sadness trying to say? What is this anger protecting? Second, practice active imagination every day, even if only for 10 minutes. Sit in silence, breathe deeply. Let the darkness take a concrete form. Maybe a woman dressed in black sitting in the corner, maybe a crying child inside your chest, maybe a faceless shadow standing in front of the door, and speak to it with respect. What do you want to tell me? What do you need from me? What have you been protecting me from all this time? Jung discovered that when we give form to the darkness, the energy locked inside it starts flowing again, And that is the very energy that wakes us from the long sleep we thought was normal life. The dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul, opening into that primordial cosmic night, which was so long before there was conscious ego. Carl Jung. Depression without meaning is stagnation that slowly kills the soul. Depression answered with awareness is initiation that gives birth again. Here are a few gentle reminders. 1. Stop pathologizing every collapse as a disease that must be erased immediately. Ask yourself softly, what if this isn't just illness? What if this is a call home? Still seek professional help if you're in too deep. Jung never rejected that. This isn't either slash or, it's and. 2. Create sacred daily space for the unconscious. Free write in a journal every night without censorship. Record even tiny dream fragments. Notice synchronicities that feel like private messages from the universe. 3. Face the shadow with a mother's tenderness. Write a letter to your wounded part. Draw the darkness on paper or speak out loud to it in an empty room. 4. Nurture the tiny sparks of meaning still alive. One song that still makes you cry. One walk in the park that still lets you breathe. One childhood memory that still warms you. Because those are Ariadne's thread that will lead you out of the labyrinth. 5. Let individuation unfold at its own rhythm. Release identities that no longer fit. Release roles that no longer belong to you. Release relationships held together only by guilt. And allow the larger self to rise slowly, like a sunrise that never hurries. Together we've walked through the darkness, so often mistaken for an ending, that what we call depression can be the deepest, most honest, most loving call from the soul, not to stay drowned, but to be reborn through Jung's individuation. This isn't about fighting the pain, but listening to it with reverence, not about erasing the darkness, but letting it become the midwife of a truer, fuller, more alive you. Now let me ask you gently, like a friend sitting beside you on the quietest night, have you ever lived a moment when you weren't sure if you were breaking apart or being reborn? What did it feel like? And what, if anything, finally helped you see the difference? Share in the comments. Your story might become the small lantern that saves someone sitting in the exact same darkness, wondering if they're broken forever. And if this reflection touched something deep in your heart, share this video with one person you know is quietly wrestling with the same question. Maybe a friend, a sibling, or even your future self who forgot how to breathe. Hit subscribe, turn on the Metasitta bell, so when the night comes again, and it will, you'll know there's a space waiting with open arms, ready to hold you exactly as you are. You are not broken. You are becoming. And that process, just as it is, with all its rubble and tears, is one of the most beautiful things happening in the universe right now.